Hi, I'm Alicia Michelle, best-selling author, ICF certified coach, and neurocoach. I love helping Christian women discover practical ways to manage emotions with science and scripture so they can live with more calm, more clarity, more confidence. I'm so glad you're here. Find a cozy spot and let's get started. Hi there, and welcome to today's episode of the Christian Mindset Coach with me, Alicia Michelle. Anxiety is one of those buzzwords that we hear a lot, especially in our current culture. In fact, I'm always joking with my teen and 20-something-year-old kids that everything makes them anxious, that everything is a trigger, right? Do you hear those words a lot? It just kind of makes me laugh because I think, is everything a trigger? How come we're anxious about everything now? There is this intensity that has increased in our society where we do have feelings of anxiousness, worry, fear. But what is that distinction between having fears, concerns, and worries on and off to having something that really does need some additional attention, some anxiety? We do know from the statistics that anxiety and anxiousness has increased since the time of COVID. It was highest during the time of COVID. And a lot of those numbers haven't really returned back to the pre-COVID numbers. So we do know that as a society, we are dealing with anxiety, which makes sense because if we've started a pattern neurologically and we haven't really changed that, if we've changed the pattern to be this new way of interacting with the world and not gone back to the old way, then we are going to stay as these anxious people. Regardless if it is a diagnosed anxiety disorder or just an increase of feeling anxious, like a lot of us are feeling, we need to figure out what to do with this. And so I love that my friend Becky Keife has written a book about her story, about struggling with anxiety, being an overachieving person, and having that need to connect with Jesus through this, to understand how to get through the day, not just have all these feelings inside and keep pushing them down, but actually use them as a bridge to Christ. And so the new book that she's written, which is called A Verse a Day for the Anxious Soul, it's a 100-day devotional. I love that format for anxiety because it is forcing us, and I mean forcing in the nicest way, it is encouraging us to go to God every day and to go to his word and to have practical practices to do to work through the anxiety versus just trying to find a one-time fix or making it all go away. Here's how I can use what feels like this overwhelming aspect of my life to be an opportunity to connect with God. And her devotional guides us through step by step how to do that. So I brought her on the show today to talk more about her journey through anxiety and what it has meant for her to be able to cling to the Lord in these times and what it means to trust God. I mean, how can we have that balance between trusting God and feeling the anxiety and also all the other feelings that can come around anxiety if we are these high achieving, high performance women? How do we balance all of that and still feel sane in light of perhaps struggling with anxiety? Here's a little bit about Becky. Becky Keife is a writer, a speaker, a Bible teacher, and she's the author of several books, including the brand new A Verse a Day for the Anxious Soul. Becky is a personal friend of mine. She is a powerful speaker and a wonderful woman of God. She also cares deeply about mental health, and she loves equipping individuals and churches to be able to see anxiety through a biblical lens and to experience the wholeness found in Jesus. Here is that conversation with Becky Keife on anxiety. Becky, thank you so much for coming on today and talking about this topic. I know it's not always easy to talk about something like anxiety, but it is such a prevalent issue in our society. So thank you for being vulnerable and sharing about it.
I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, first, let's start off by talking about your story. How did you see anxiety begin to develop in your life? What's that journey been like for you?
Well, the gift of hindsight, I can look back and be like, oh, this has pretty much always been part of my story, but I really didn't have the language to identify it or name it until about 11 years ago.
Mm.
And maybe it's even helpful for some people just to even say from the outset, even the word anxiety can be used to describe a lot of different experiences, right? We use anxiety to talk about really everyday, common, situational fear, worry, stress, overwhelm. Like that is anxiety, but it's this continuum all the way over into a clinical diagnosis, like a mental health disorder. And so I do have experience on like that whole spectrum. And so when I say I didn't have the language for it until about 11 years ago, that's when I really found myself in a place where I could no longer fake it till I make it. I could no longer pretend that I was okay or try hard enough to fix myself. And I really had to admit to myself and to God and to my husband that I was profoundly struggling, which then ended up leading to a clinical anxiety disorder. But for me, that often looked like waking up with like, it felt like there was a brick on my chest, Alicia. Like it felt like no matter how hard I tried to catch my breath, like I couldn't fill my lungs.
Yeah.
It looked like for me, anxiety is very physical. It's not that way for everyone, but for me, yeah, it felt like I would explain like coffee jitters in my whole body, even if I had had like zero caffeine. This like uncomfortable buzzing, feeling a sadness that didn't match my circumstance. So those
Yeah.
were kind of some of the things that I wrestled with and got to the point where I was like, I'm not okay. And that really began my journey of unraveling what is anxiety, why do I have it, where does it come from, what are things that I can do to heal, what are tools I can put in my toolbox to cope and move through. I can look back on my life prior to that diagnosis and be like, oh, I've had this bent, this wiring, this predisposition towards anxiety. And there's also things that I can find a lot of hope and healing and freedom from as well.
So it sounds like for a long time, this was kind of under the surface and just a part of your life. And would you say that that's true?
Yeah.
Kind of.
I think too, because I've always been a very high functioning, high capacity
Mhm.
achiever, Enneagram 3 type of person. Even in sometimes dealing with depression and anxiety, like my therapist describes it as like two sides of the same coin or as cousins. And so there are some links. But so even when I've struggled with more of like the depressive side of things, it hasn't looked like being fully incapacitated. I'm able to carry a lot. And so I named my anxiety or my depression as it must just be PMS
Mm.
or it's
Yeah.
grief or
Yeah.
my circumstances are overwhelming. At the time, I had three little tiny kids. And I thought, oh, well, it's just like this is just how everyone feels. And I kind of tried to explain it away, but then it
Mm.
became so persistent, so severe that I had to recognize, like, oh, there's something deeper going on.
Yeah. Okay, friend, quick question. Is there something in your life right now that you have definitely given to God and then immediately picked up 5 minutes later? Like you've prayed about it, you've journaled about it, you've told yourself to just trust God, and yet your brain is still over there running spreadsheets and imaginary conversations at 2 a.m.? If you're stuck in that stress loop, caring deeply, but secretly trying to control the outcome, you're not crazy, and you are definitely not alone. That's exactly why inside the Emotional Confidence Club, we're starting a 6-week study called Stress Less, releasing control and finding peace even when nothing is changing. We're going to get super practical about how to separate responsibility from control, what to do with the grief underneath your frustration, and how to actually release something without becoming passive or pretending that you don't care. You'll get live teaching from me, a guided playbook, small group conversation, and real tools grounded in brain science and scripture. Look, peace isn't about finally fixing the situation. It's about learning how to hold it differently. We start March 5th, and I would love to have you with us. Come join us at aliciamichelle.com/club. Well, if this was going on, how were you coping? Like, what were some of the unhealthy ways that you were carrying this?
Ignoring it, hiding, striving, just trying harder. That was a lot of
Mm.
my coping mechanism of if I just fill in the blank, if I just work harder, if I just manage my time better, if I just even doing good things, like if I just get enough vitamins or exercise or add more things to my gratitude list. Like if I just do these things, if I could just get my kids to behave better, then I wouldn't be irritated and spiraling. I'll also numbing out,
Mm.
checking out of my life, not being present in my life, scrolling social media for hours, just snacking, things that, I can name as benign. From, numbing out can look like a lot of things for a lot of people. And I wasn't doing anything that, was quote, sinful or looked like an addiction on the outside, but I can look back and be like, oh yeah, I was definitely trying to escape my pain, escape my struggle by kind of checking out.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned you're an Enneagram 3. And
Mm-hmm.
so, for those of you who are familiar with the Enneagram, that part of the Enneagram, people who are threes are very achievement driven, very much about checking boxes, getting things done.
Right.
And I think it's really interesting that as someone who I thought I was a 3 for a really long time, and I ended up taking the test again, and I can see now that I'm a 1, which is very similar to a 3, a
Okay.
moral
Yeah.
perfectionist. And I have struggled with anxiety in the past too. So I have some thoughts on this, but I was curious what your thoughts are on how having those high performance perfectionist tendencies, how does that build just these other kind of baggage issues that come with anxiety, like shame and
Mm-hmm.
guilt? Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, it's so funny, Alicia, because actually one of the first devotions in my new book that I know we're going to talk about, it's called "Go to Bed and Take the B." And it's a story about how even like as a high schooler, I just was hardwired for achievement. It was really, I didn't recognize at the time, but it was really an issue of identity, of feeling
Mm.
like I am what I achieve. And
Yeah.
therefore, if I can achieve, then what does that say about who I am? It spirals on these layers of shame. And am I a disappointment? And am I letting myself down? Am I letting someone
Mhm.
else down? And so, yeah, I absolutely, being an achiever or being, an Enneagram 1, like we all have these gifts, but gosh, they can be twisted into weaknesses and into these traps that heighten our anxiety because you build this life based around doing. I put productivity on these pedestals, and then one that fueled my anxiety. And then when my anxiety prevents me from doing all those things, then it's just like this crash and burn cycle that I couldn't maintain forever. And God was
Mm.
like, I don't want you to, Becky. Like, I actually don't want you to maintain this.
Right. I'm glad you're talking about this because I think there's a lot of women that I work with and I know who listen who are those types. I tend to
Mm-hmm.
attract those kind of people because I am one of them. But I think it's a double whammy if we have that kind of wiring because we think I'm really good at working harder and compensating for what is lacking. Like I can
Mm-hmm.
fill in the gaps. And I don't mean just me, I mean the people like that. That's what we tell
Right.
ourselves. I can
Yes.
fill in the gaps. And so when anxiety puts you in this spin of like, you feel almost like, to me, it's like you're having an outer body experience. Like, why can't I just do it? Like, what is wrong with me? And you're just like cycling and circling. And it's so frustrating to be in a fight
Right.
with yourself, basically.
Yeah. Well, the hard thing is that when you are a achiever, high capacity person, you often quote can do it. We can
Right.
just push through. And for a long time, that's how I operated. I'm like, if I just head down, push through, check off more boxes, like that was really the lie that I thought if I just achieved more, then my anxiety would subside. If I
Yeah.
could just prove myself, get more approval, then I would feel better internally. Not so much the case.
Yeah, right. And I think that becomes more apparent the more things you are able to accomplish. And you're like, and it's still here. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
still that feeling. So thanks for talking about that. Well, I know you're not a medical health professional in terms of a doctor who can diagnose and things like that. But in
Yeah.
your experience, where is that line between someone feeling like I'm just kind of a worry kind of a person, or I have fear and
Mhm.
have something that really needs more attention with a maybe something needs to, I need to go to a doctor to talk about my anxiety that I'm struggling with.
Yeah. Well, what I think can be a really helpful litmus test is two things: thinking about how persistent and how severe
Mm.
is what you're experiencing, how persistent and how severe. And actually, a friend once shared this analogy that was so helpful. She was like, it's kind of like a rash. Like we all experience some kind of skin
Yeah.
abnormality from time to time, right? Like you're
Sure.
going to get a bump, a bruise, a sting, something's itchy, something we just have stuff like pops up out of nowhere. It's like, what is this? And often with just enough time, it's probably going to go away. Or
Right.
maybe with like some home remedies, you're like, oh, like I'm going to take a bath or I'm going to put this lotion on it. But then if what seems like kind of a minor skin irritant, if it
Mm,
stays for a long time, or if it starts getting worse, it starts spreading, it
mm,
wakes you up at night because it's so painful or so itchy, or it's changing, then you're like, oh, this thing that could have gone away on its own, oh, it's getting worse. It's interfering with what I'm thinking, what I'm doing. It's time to go to the doctor. Right. And so, in a
yeah.
similar way, that is the same.
Mm,
Like, we're all going to experience times of overwhelm. We're all going to experience fear. We're going to experience times where it's like, oh, yeah, we are even having some of those physical symptoms of, sweaty palms or racing mind or tension in our back. But, like, if when the situation resolves, if the symptoms don't resolve,
yeah.
then that's a sign. And the other thing I want to say about this, Alicia, sometimes it's hard to do that for ourselves. But
Mm,
guess what? If we're both moms, we can deal with a lot of pain and discomfort ourselves. But if our kid had a rash and we're like,
yeah.
oh, that started on your toes and now it's all the way up to your neck, we're not going to be like, just buck up.
Come on,
You,
dude.
you, you've had it for 6 months, but another 6 months won't hurt.
Yeah.
Obviously, can
Slow
see in
down.
someone else like,
Yeah.
oh, you are worthy of like care and attention, or I'm not quite sure what's causing this, but let's
Mm,
find out together.
mm,
So it ought to be with our mental health. So
right.
sometimes if you cannot even see it for yourself, think if a friend was feeling the way I am, if she was dealing with what I'm dealing with, would I tell her like, oh, it's probably not that bad, wait a little longer? Or would you
Right.
be like, oh, sweetie, let's get you some support like today? That has
Yes.
really helped me in times where even on this
Mm,
11-year journey where I've been in seasons, it seems like I'm doing well, and then something will crop up or a fresh wave will hit
yeah.
and I can easily wait to the point of crisis. But I've learned that if my best friend was feeling this, what would I tell her?
Right.
And it's like, oh, it's time to go. It's time to go back to my therapist or back to the doctor or whatever it is I need at that point.
Right. And I think we need to separate out the shame that comes with feeling like we can't fix it ourselves, like looking
Mm-hmm.
at it as if you had a rash that would not go away, why would we be mad at ourselves if we had a rash that couldn't go away? We wouldn't.
Right.
We wouldn't. And so if we have these mental health issues or just these patterns that we're not sure what to deal with, we need to be able to step outside and say, it's okay. Like, it doesn't mean I'm a bad Christian. It doesn't mean I'm a bad person. Like, there's something wrong with me. It just is a sign that I might need to get some help in this, in the same way that if I had this other medical condition, I would get help. So I like
Ex-
that analogy of the rash because that's
yeah.
pretty, yeah.
Exactly. And even if like so say with a rash, say you're allergic to wool and you wear a wool sweater, or say you know that you are prone to breakouts when you eat a certain food and you eat that food. I put it in quotes like be your fault. Like there could be things that you
Sure.
are doing that contribute
Yeah.
to it, but that
Yeah.
still doesn't mean that you aren't like you shouldn't take the steps to get better. And so in the
Yes.
same way, like yeah, we could have some behavioral patterns or some thought patterns or some spiritual baggage. Like there can be things in our lives that it's like, oh, well, I kind of made these choices or I contributed to my stress or anxiety in these ways. But still, in the same way, we are worthy of, yeah, going to the doctor or going to the therapist or getting that support to be like, hey, this thing is off kilter. Something's
Yeah.
happening. It's probably multifaceted. And we need someone to come alongside and help give us some tools, usher us into some healing. And
Right.
that's certainly been my experience.
Awesome. Thanks for saying that. And so your new book is written in a devotional style. It's
Mm-hmm.
100 days of these devotionals meant to connect us with God, help us think specifically about how to approach our anxiety. And then there's all kinds of other little practices throughout to help build peace. So I'm curious for you, what made you choose that style? Because a lot of times you'll read a book, quote unquote, on
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, and it's like, this is what anxiety is, and this is what we do. Like, so for you,
Yeah.
why did you feel this would be helpful to have it in this format?
Well, interestingly, so I actually thought about writing it first as a book,
Yeah.
as what we know as a trade book. And
Yeah.
so I've written other books before, and I certainly have plenty to dive in and dissect and talk about the causes and share more of my own story. But I landed on this devotional format because when life is overwhelming, or when our anxiety is spiraling, or when we feel at our max, we need an easy inroad to peace. We need like a gentle, bite-sized guide. When my anxiety is high, like sometimes I don't even feel like I have the brain capacity to like sit down like a chapter, a 12-page chapter can feel daunting. And
Sure.
so for the woman who is either, in a high stress season of her
Mm.
life or is dealing with that mental health kind of anxiety, I wanted something that was it is short, is accessible, it's not overwhelming. It's like, okay, if you have 5 minutes and if you can breathe, then
Mm.
this is a book that's going to meet you right where you are.
And you not only offer these devotionals, but there are other practices in there. So, can you talk more about what those are and how those came to be a part of the book?
Yeah. So there are, like you said, Alicia, 100 devotions, and that gives you a verse. We always want to be rooted in scripture, and there's going to be a reflection. I share lots of gritty honesty from my own life. I don't want any woman, any man, men read this too, to feel alone. There's breath work because we know that God made our bodies to be integrated into our spirits and our minds. And so when we breathe, it like grounds our parasympathetic nervous system and shifts us to calm. There's prayers, but I also wanted it to be very practical because
Mm.
stuff can be so noisy. I mean, there's going to be a million voices telling you a million different things to do. And it's like, what do I do? Like, which one is going to help? And so I wanted to include very practical things that I thought, okay, if I could sit across from coffee with a dear friend and tell her, this is what I actually do in my real life. And it makes a difference because when I'm not doing these things, I can feel the anxiety rise as that best friend, as that big sister to come alongside others and give what I call peace practices. So 14 very practical things that we can do to really create rhythms of peace. They're not overwhelming. They don't take a lot of time. They don't cost money. But how do we honor God with our bodies, minds, and souls and put ourselves in rhythms to receive his peace? That's what these peace practices are. So they come after, 7 days of devotion. So basically, if you go through it at the end of the week, you're going to get a new peace practice and they're going to build upon each other. They're things that you probably know, but sometimes we just need that reminder like move, move your body. I know that you like to geek out over brain science too, but like when we move our body, that like releases these, feel good chemicals and it actually does things in our brain to help us bring us to a state of calm. Talk
Mm.
about journal, the power of writing out what is tangled up in our minds. And in that space, we get to breathe a little bit. I call it like a breath for our brains. And we can hear God's voice. Really simple things like cry, laugh. Like if you need permission to cry, permission granted. Like is
Right.
that physical
Right.
release we need. So there are 14
Yeah.
of them: refuel, pray, give thanks, serve, unplug, but just really practical things that women can grab onto and be like, oh, I know that, but I needed that reminder. I need that little nudge that if I'm feeling anxious, here's something very simple that I can implement to bring some calm to my soul.
Yeah, I think it's so important to have both because we do need those gentle, like you said, I am so overwhelmed with it right now. I can't really sit down and read a text on what my anxiety is founded in. Like, I can't read that right now.
Yeah.
Like, I just need the gentle reminder that I'm not alone, the words from scripture, opportunity to connect with Jesus. But there's so many things that we can do every day in these practical rhythms that can help put us in the right place so that
Hmm.
the anxiety may not ever fully go away, but we have that responsibility to, like you said, set ourselves up for success, to put us in a place where we're best equipped to deal with that extra part. Like if we had a rash, we're going to go back to that
Hmm.
example, we would put our silly lotion on that the doctor gives us. We would put it on,
Right.
we would avoid the wool fabric if we're allergic. Like these are the kind of things that help strengthen us. And so
Right.
I appreciate that that was part of this devotional because I think it's covering both sides of it.
Yeah, because I really believe, and I say it because it's been my experience, that anxiety can be mental, it can be emotional,
Mm.
physical, and spiritual. And so I really wanted to give tools for all of those things that we can really do in our everyday lives, like as simple as like I realize there's all this tension in my neck and I'm kind of holding my breath and even clenching my fists a little bit because I'm, you know, trying to fix it all myself, whatever it is. And I'm like, oh, actually, I just need to breathe. Instead of pushing through and trying to do one more thing on my list, I'm going to go and I'm going to sit outside. I'm going to get some
Mm.
sun on my face, but I'm going to engage my senses. Oh, there's a bird. Life is so much bigger than like what's going on in my little bubble. Okay, I'm going to take a 5-minute walk around the block. I'm going to have a little reset and I'm going to give thanks in this moment because for everything that feels like it's spiraling out of control, God is still good. Like these are just like simple integrated rhythms really can make all the difference.
So, just to kind of close up, as you walked this journey for 11 years, what have been some things that you've learned about yourself? And what have been some things you've learned about God in this process?
That's a great question. I've learned how desperately I need Jesus, and I've learned how deeply loved I am by him. I think for me, like one of the undercurrents of my anxiety has been this pervasive feeling of not enough. I am not enough. I can't do enough. I'm disappointing someone. I'm letting someone down. And through this journey of anxiety, I just really learned that like God just loves us. Like it's so basic, but it's the deepest and most transformative truth that we can receive today. I love Jesus's words in Matthew 11. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Rest for your souls, he offers us. And so in that, what I've learned about God is like, he's an invitational God. He is not shaming me. He's not disappointed in me. He's saying, I get it. I'm not asking you to fix it or clean up or strive harder. I'm saying, will you come, Becky? Will you come in your weariness? Will you come in your anxiety? This picture of a yoke, it's being tethered to Christ. Will we hitch ourselves to Jesus? Will we learn to go at his pace and stay in his presence? And in that way, I actually call anxiety a gift because anything that reminds us of how desperately we need God, like that is a gift. And if every day I can get to the point of saying, like, I can't do it on my own and I don't want to, I want to stay hitched to God's presence.
Right.
Yeah, that's a gift.
Oh, you're so right about that. I agree. I think a lot of us are longing for opportunities to see God in the everyday
Mm-hmm.
and have him show up. And maybe we think we want it to look like a certain thing, like, I don't know, a physical gift or, we're like, wow, God, thanks, but really he is giving us these opportunities all day long. And emotions like anxiety are the perfect invitation. It's a chance for us, again, like you said, to say, I can't do this, but I
Mm-hmm.
know that you love me. And so I'm inviting you in. It's an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for us, especially as these strong, achieving women, to recognize our necessity in depending on God, the importance of just staying focused on Him. So it's a hard lesson to learn, but I think it does reframe when these hard emotions come up to work through.
Mm-hmm.
It does help us. Yeah. So tell us more about where we can find out information about you and about this new book.
Well, my favorite place to hang out online is Instagram. So I would love for anyone to come and find and follow me there. I'm just at Becky Keife. If this episode was meaningful to you, please drop in my DMs. Please say hello. I would love to connect. You can also find out more about all of my books and speaking and things that I do at my website, beckykeife.com. And Today for the Anxious Soul is available wherever books are sold. Amazon, Barnes and Noble. So wherever you like to buy books, you can find it.
Awesome. Becky, thank you for being so vulnerable and talking about this. I appreciate that you're not just talking about it from a clinical standpoint. This is your story. This
Mm.
is you sharing what it's been like for you and how you have learned how to work with God through this. And even, like you said, grow your faith in the midst of it. So thanks for sharing with us today, too.
Oh, thank you for having me.
One of the things I loved about talking to Becky about that was that I felt like it was a permission slip to be able to really ask ourselves if anxiety is something we need to pay more attention to. Is this something that is affecting our daily life? Is it something that, like the rash, that has grown and expanded, even though maybe that thing that it started with, that stressful season, has ended and we still feel kind of amped up? Are there things that if that is the case, that we can do to help ourselves not feel so anxious? Like, what are things that we can do practically to help ourselves? For me, as someone who has struggled with anxiety her whole life, I find that there are certain practices that I have to keep in place all the time, like working out, making sure I have time in solitude, making sure I'm spending time with Jesus, doing deep breathing when I feel anxious thoughts and actions starting to take over, really focusing on surrendering to God when there is this intensity of wanting to try to fix it and feeling out of control. Even simple things like not drinking caffeinated beverages. Those who have hung out with me know that I cannot have any caffeine, that I have enough energy and wiring to fuel myself just fine on my own. And if I actually add caffeine into that mix, everything starts to just amp up, including my anxiety. So for me, that's just a simple way in the everyday that I can help myself. So asking yourself, is this something that's just like she mentioned, a rash, a passing little, here it is, and then it's gone tomorrow? Or is it something that really has grown and needs to have some attention paid to it? Becky's book can be a great way to start that journey of seeing, God, how can I lean on you more through this season? If you do feel like you need some additional help, I have partnered with Faithful Counseling online as an online resource for people who need counseling and they're not quite sure where to start or where to find a counselor in their area. It's a great resource. I have had clients come back to me and tell me that they've been super helpful, very affordable. And you can get 10% off your first month when you use my link. So you would go to getfaithful.com/vibrant, VIBRANT. So getfaithful.com/vibrant to get 10% off your first month. That can be really helpful. I like to partner with them because there are times when I work with clients or I meet new friends that live in other parts of the world and I can't say, hey, go to this counselor because I don't live near them. And this is a great resource because I do speak to women and men all over the world. So if you're looking for a next step and you're not sure where to start, that would be a great place to go to. All right, friend, thanks for going there with me today and talking about this topic. I pray that what you have learned would be an encouragement to you. Maybe this isn't a touch point for you, but you know someone who needs to hear about anxiety and who needs some encouragement and hope, and maybe a book like what Becky has written. Pass this message on to her, pass this podcast on to her, and let her know that there is real hope, that we can learn how to walk with the Lord in a deeper way, even if we struggle with issues like anxiety. Take care. I look forward to seeing you back here next week for another episode. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for joining me today. For full show notes and helpful next step resources, visit aliciamichelle.com/podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, I'd be honored if you'd leave a 5-star rating and review. Thanks for being here. I'll see you back next week.